Good day and greetings from the Great White North. My name is Prickly Poo and welcome to day 282 of a year of change. Today we're going to touch on something I had mentioned on the weekend, actually, and it's something that I knew we were eventually going to have to deal with, and that is loose skin. I was actually going to show you, but I first noticed this actually on a video last week. And I was talking away and my arms were flailing all over the place and I saw like waka 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 waka. It's kind of, yeah, I'm starting to get it. Now, this is something that we've all known at some point we're going to have to deal with. We're losing a lot of weight. And part of that is the loose skin. And I had mentioned before that I looked in the mirror and I couldn't really see anything. I have like a before and midpoint picture now. And well, the picture's around 315 pounds. So it's not at my heaviest. I don't know where my heaviest one went. That one's gone. It probably burned it, cried, and everything else. But that picture itself, compared to what I look like now, I don't see much of a difference. I mean, you can look at it and go, yeah, there's a bit of a difference, but you would never think that there's 9 months difference in between the two of them, and you certainly wouldn't think there's a 75-pound difference between the two of them. And I think part of that might be because of the loose skin, where it's not exactly hanging all over the place, but it's enough that, you know, because everything is still kind of loose and baggy, that it's not going to look the way that we think it should look. Generally, when we think of weight loss, we think we're just going to shrink down and everything's going to be fine. But we know that with any large amount of weight loss, that there is that loose skin issue. Now, I'm not the best person to talk about this because I've never actually had to deal with it. So I'm not really going to say, well, here's what you can do to prevent it, because I don't know if there is anything. I think a lot of it is having to do with genetics, whether or not, you know, your elasticity of your skin is able to spring back. I don't think it's a matter of, well, it's going to take 10 years and then it'll shrink back to where it is, because then in that case, the cells actually have to regenerate. Well, the cells do regenerate roughly every 7 years, but I don't think that it's the same. I don't think it's enough that you're just going to slough off all this extra skin. The problem is, because we've been overeating so much, because we're so overweight, that we have more skin than your average person, obviously, because it has to contain everything as things get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's why if you get too big too fast, then it tears, and that's why you get stretch marks and everything else, which I don't think we've ever actually dealt with. We probably should. But anyway, staying on target with this one. With this, because we're now, that fat is going, the skin in general, and this is part of the reason why I wanted to lose 1 to 2 pounds a week in general, just as a nice average, because it's enough that your skin is going to start sort of shrinking, but the elasticity, it's going to sort of start to shrink back a little bit more. Mine is not going the way that it needs to go. And part of that, as well as the genetic part of it, there is the age thing to take into consideration. If you're losing this and you're in your teens or your 20s, you're going to be fine. Eventually that's probably going to shrink down. It's a lot better anyway than someone in their 30s or 40s or 50s or older, because the elasticity in our skin is not exactly fresh. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's anyway not as good. Now, I'm sure there are like creams or something that you can use, or, you know, there's probably a whole slew of different products that are out there. I don't know if there might be something that we could look into, because I don't know if any of them work. I don't know if any of them are actually medically sound, if any of them are scientifically valid. I don't know any of it. It might just all be, no, rub this on yourself. It's like, well, it's butter. That's not going to do any good. So as far as preventing it, though, I don't know if there is any way that we can. It's that trade-off. Do I want to lose the weight? Well, yes, then I need to accept the fact that the loose skin thing is going to happen. And I would much rather have the loose skin than be overweight, because at least with the skin, you know, eventually you can fix it. It's something that, I mean, you can conceal with clothes and you should be fine. And if you're losing an extreme amount of weight, we have seen a few people that are in, you know, the 400 or 500 pound range that, you know, and I'm probably up there too. Going from 325 to 175, that's like you're cutting your weight in half. In the long run, surgery might be an option to just sort of tidy everything up. But then, of course, you have to deal with all the scarring. And I do this because I've seen the scars and it sort of goes boop, and they just take all the extra stuff out. But that's a long, long way down the road. The main thing that I just sort of want to talk about today is just sort of that acceptance of it. knowing that this is part of the weight loss process. And I don't want it to be something that you're going, I don't want that to happen. I'd rather just stay the way I am, because we know what we're like. We look for excuses to just sort of stop what we're doing. And this is a big one, because it's been months and months of me waiting for this to happen. And now that I'm actually seeing it start to happen, yeah, even with this, I'm just like, I don't know if I want it. But when I think back to being 325 pounds, how I was then, and it's been less than a year, so it's not like I'm thinking way back. But if I had to trade in even just how I feel now with how I feel then, I would take now, even knowing what I know. And part of me is thinking, okay, well then you're going to feel even better at 175. And then the other part is going, but your skin's going to be a lot looser. But I'm not going to know until I actually hit that just what the damage is. But overall, I think that it's something that we probably would much rather have that than staying obese. And which I still have not looked to see if I have moved from just morbidly down to regular. I should do that. I'll do that this weekend. We'll update then. But it's just because I've seen it. I've just started seeing it. And that's why it's sort of on my mind now, because I'm thinking, you know, how bad is it going to get? It's probably the best way to put it. And I know that I could do, like, I could lift weights, or I could do, you know, there's probably some training, like some exercises and stuff I can do to sort of help so that I fill it out a little bit better. So instead of it just being filled with fat, then there's some muscle in there as well. So I can look at that. That's going to probably help. But it's sort of surprised me, because when I was editing and stuff, and I'm looking on the screen, and then I see this wobble, and I'm like, okay, I don't think it's been there before. It probably has, but it was filled with fat, so it didn't wobble as much, or it wobbled in a different way. But it's actual, you know, it's the loose skin. And I think that might be part of the reason why I'm not seeing much of a difference. I mean, I can sort of see it on my face, but that's like all your skin is going to sort of pull downward, I would suspect. So everyone has loose skin on their face, and they're like, all over the place. Everyone used to do that when they were kids. Ooh, that didn't feel good. But everyone has like loose skin here and there and everywhere. But I'm talking about like being able to just sort of go, this could come off right now and it wouldn't bother me, because it's all extra loose stuff. And I'm sure that, you know, eventually it is going to shrink back a little bit. It's going to get to a point where I can look at it and say, okay, now I know what I have to work with. And that's probably the best way to look at this right now, because we know what's going to be happening. We know that it's something we're going to have to deal with. But rather than sort of borrowing trouble ahead of time and going, oh, it's going to look so horrible, I'm going to have to get surgery, I'm going to have to do this and this, and I'm going to have to buy this and do all the other things, it's probably best to look at it and say, you know what, assuming this is where it goes. You know, once it gets to that point, it may look better than it does now, it may look worse, but I'll have to deal with that when it happens, because it's going to be different for everybody. There are some of you that are out there that are going to lose half the weight that I need to lose, and you're going to have loose skin. There are others that are going to lose twice as much as I need to lose. Well, you're still going to have loose skin, but not as bad as you may think it's going to be. I don't want to say that you're not going to have loose skin, because that would be fucking impossible. If you are 325 pounds and you're going down to 175, you're cutting your body weight in half. You're not going to just go, oh, look, I have no loose skin. And we've seen it before, though. We have seen that there are some people that are out there that have been, you know, heavier than me, that have cut way back, and it's taken them a long time to get to where they need to be, but they're in a healthier place now. But again, I think that, you know, if you're younger, it's going to be a little bit easier for you to do. But again, genetics is going to play a big part of that. This is the first time I'm actually going to say, yes, it's your genes, it's genetics. Because I think the skin elasticity is really based on your genetics. There's nothing really environmental that you can look at and say, oh, if only I had grown up in Lithuania, my skin would be much more springy and I wouldn't have to deal with loose skin. We're always going to have to deal with it. It's something that I knew was going to end up happening eventually. And in a way, it's kind of nice to look at it and go, okay, it's happening. It's a horrible thing to have happen. Like, you're just like, ugh. But what that means is that that's no longer filled with fat, because it didn't have loose skin before, because there was fat deposits just stored everywhere all over my body. So now that I've gotten rid of, 75 pounds of that, it's, of course, I mean, there's nothing in there. It's just like an empty bag. So yes, that loose skin is going to happen. So as gross as it is something that does make me feel good, because I think, you know what, that should be filled out with fat. And it's not anymore. So, I mean, it is a nice feeling. At least you have that. So, it's sort of a bittersweet thing, because although it's not something that you want to look forward to, because you think, I want to lose the weight, I want to look better, and then this starts happening. You're like, I'm not looking better, I'm just looking wrinklier. Is that a word? I think it is. Wrinkle and wrinkly. Wrinklier. Wrinklier. It works. And really, I mean, it's just like a deflated balloon everywhere. So before you start going, you know what, I'd rather do, I mean, you have to make a decision, I guess. Would you rather be Funhouse Mirror Fat or Funhouse Mirror Saggy? I'd probably pick the saggy, because although on the outside it doesn't look great, we didn't look great before. Let's face it, we were not attractive before. We still aren't. A lot of us aren't. But that does not look good. Being obese, it's not aesthetically pleasing to us, to anyone else. With the saggy skin, it's not going to be either. But we're healthier, we're eating better, we feel better, and it's going to be, I think, I don't want to say it's going to be a small part of the overall, result, because for some of us it's going to be pretty big. There are some that can handle it and that say, you know what, I don't care, I'll have loose skin, it'll be fine, I still look great, I feel great about myself. Bravo if you can do that. But for a lot of us, we've dealt with so many years of that physical ridicule because we're fat, that transitioning from that fat ridicule, which we know how to handle, to a different kind of body image issue that we aren't familiar with can be scary. But overall, it's going to be better than being fat. And I'm doing fat over here and thin over here, I know. You still can't see my hands because I'm going, and I'm flopping all over the place. But I think it's going to be a little bit different, but I don't want it to be something that is going to deter us from what we're doing. And especially now that we're starting in on the exercise and stuff like that, or not really, well, yeah, starting in. I mean, we may notice it a little bit more, because once you start doing more and becoming more active, part of the reason why we never were active before is because it hurt. Things were flopping around and smacking us in the face, and we couldn't really do anything, and we're sweaty everywhere and under things, and we just didn't want to deal with it. So we're still going to have a little bit of that issue, but it's not the same. So it's very unfamiliar territory, but it's something that we knew something that we knew was going to happen. So if you are starting to experience this, don't let it deter you. Don't get discouraged. It's part of losing weight. We had mentioned this, I think, a long time ago, just very, very briefly, because it wasn't anything that was even on our radar at that point. It's just, well, that's a horrible metaphor, because if we did mention it, then it was on our radar. But it wasn't anything that we really need to concern ourselves with at the time. But where we started making a lot of progress and we're moving into another phase of what we're trying to do, I think it's going to sort of come out to the forefront a little bit more. But when you think about it, it's weird, because some of the really odd changes that we've run into is that our binge eating isn't the same as saying I'm going to have a whole rack of ribs and 5 plates of nachos and 2 bags of chips and 4 chocolate bars. That would be an old binge. The new binge now, and I've seen this on MyFitnessPal, I've seen it on other people's YouTube videos and stuff like that. They're going, I had 2 donuts. So it's still not great, but you know what? It's miles above where we were. So when you have a change like that, where you're going, I binged and I ate, 3 bowls of, steamed chicken. Well, then it's still much better than what we were doing. And now the fact that we have this issue sort of coming over the horizon, that one of our major concerns now, one of mine anyway, is the fact that we don't have enough fat in our bodies to fill things out. And when you think of it that way, obviously, I mean, I'm not trying to go, let's look at the positive side and there's a silver lining to everything and turn that frown upside down. Fuck off. I want to be grumpy if I want to be grumpy. And if it's a bad thing, I want to say it's a bad thing. But it's just weird that that's our new problem that we're looking at now, is we don't have enough fat in our bodies to fill things out, so it looks a little weird. And so that's something that we have to deal with. But in the long run, we are still going to be better. And anyone that you see that has lost a shit ton of weight, that has the loose skin, they all say this. Yes, it's, they're like, oh, very self-conscious about it and everything else. But when you ask them, you know, would you rather have this or would you rather be obese again? Then every single one of them has said, no, I'd much rather have this. Because this is something that they can work with, and in a way it does show that they've changed themselves so dramatically. Their body couldn't keep up. And, I mean, while we've tried to lose the weight as slowly as we can to keep things healthy, I mean, it's an inevitability. We've been dealing with so much weight for so long, our body is just used to it. So it's going to take some time to get back to, you know, a reasonably normal appearance. But I wanted to bring it up today just because I had noticed it, number one, and we've seen a few videos where people have talked about it as well. People that have lost a tremendous amount of weight, and they've talked about it, you know, and it's nothing that we've really had to deal with yet, and we're just sort of on the cusp of it. So I figured I would mention it now instead of coming back in 3 or 4 months and going, oh, look at all the loose skin everywhere. So I'm not going to show you any pictures of me in my loose skin, just so you know. So calm down, it's okay. Don't be scared. That's a long way away. I'm probably not going to do any body shots until I'm at my goal weight, or at least until I'm comfortable that way. And it's just, you know how, you know why. You know exactly why. There are people that have been able to do it, and bravo, they're a hell of a lot braver than I am. I don't mind talking about it. I don't mind sharing all of my information, but I'm not going to show people my boobs. So stop asking. No one's asked. Anyway. That's it. I just sort of wanted to bring that up because I think it's something that we've all started to think about, at least at some point. Some of you may have started thinking about this long before me. This is just the first time that I've actually noticed it. So I thought it was something that it's relevant to what we're trying to do. And I don't have the answers. I don't know, you know, what steps we can do to sort of help mitigate that, because I've never thought to look into it. I've never thought that it was going to be an issue until I actually started the weight loss. But over the next few weeks, I mean, I'll take a look and see what there is. And if I do find something, I'll come back, I'll revisit it. If you have some tips, if you've lost weight and it's, you know, something that you've dealt with, share below, definitely. Because, I mean, there are people that are going to be, I was going to say a ton of people. There aren't a ton of people watching this. But those that are watching this, that are going to sort of take a look at it. And if it's something that's concerning them, they might pick something out there that's going to be helpful. And that's the main reason why we started doing this in the first place. But for right now, I'm going to leave this video here, so thank you very much for watching. If you liked it, please poke the like button for me. And in the meantime, keep yourself warm and fuzzy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.